Thanks to everyone coming tonight. We had a great turnout of images with about 60 of them. Um, the next competition is October 25, and the subject there is anything goes for nature and for pictorial. And we'll be having the same judge, Rich Lewis, who's with us tonight. Rich had spoken at our meeting in person twice in 2020 on topics related to judging and competitions and our composition. Um, and we were supposed to have had a half a Saturday workshop with Rich, but that got canceled because of COVID, and that was going to be on judging specifically. So welcome tonight, Rich. Rich is a professional and fine art photographer. He's been doing this since the 1970s. One of his several passions include the Pine Barrens of New Jersey, which you see behind him, and additionally abandoned buildings and structures. Rich has developed a style that he calls painting with a camera, having gotten a lot of his inspiration from studying painters. He's an active photographer, blogger, lecturer, instructor, and gives a number of workshops, particularly in the Jersey Pine Barrens. And we'll be releasing a book shortly, as you may have heard, photographing in the Jersey Pine Barrens, a complete photography guide, and that should be coming out next month. I gave you references to Rich, his website, etc., in the last several newsletters. And with that, Rich, I'll let you introduce yourself, and then we could move forward.
Sure. Well, Vince, thanks for that introduction. So you guys kind of know about my style. It was very, very interesting judging for your club. Your competitions are a little bit different than what I was used to. So it was really interesting to kind of evaluate that. You have a much more complex scoring system. And yeah, and I did everything beforehand. So now we're just sort of going to review everything. And I'm actually going to get to edit some of your photos too, which is kind of fun too. So, I mean, just basically about the way I judge this is, I look basically for three things in when I judge something, photography. And first thing is technical competence. Yeah, everything's in focus that's supposed to be in focus. That it looked like, the settings were right, nothing's overexposed, underexposed, that type of thing. No distracting elements. And then I look at composition, how you compose the shot, whether it's not necessarily whether you follow the rules and regulations of composition or not. It's just whether the composition works, how my eye goes through the image. And then the last thing is, and really the most important thing is impact. How did the image affect me? Was it, so based on that, I came up with a score based on your scoring system. And, I guess we'll go through that now and I'll get to do a critique as well, correct?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so with that, I'll ask you to mute and the chat room will be open. I'm going to share my screen. And you should be seeing my Lightroom catalog now. Can you do that? Can you see that?
I can see it.
Okay, great. Let me just minimize this thing. Okay. All right, so we'll run through the images. This is Class A Nature. And we'll go through each of the images to start with. I hope. And okay, we'll be starting here. Upper left-hand corner is the title. This one's black and white. And the first one was Majestic Egret, sorry. Flight. building a nest, mayflies, water's edge, mushrooms, white birch, storm clearing, looking at you, zebra lunch, zebra crossing, canyon textures, aspens, foxgloves, 12-spotted skimmer, churn, morning glow, and that would be it for Class A nature. And we'll go through Rich's picks, and then we'll go from there. This is honorable mention by myself. Third place, Majestic Egret by Ivan Bubb. Second place, Mushrooms by Ginny Lodge. And first place, Zebra Crossings by Lee Reeves. I'll stop sharing for a minute here. Rich, would you like to do your critiques at the end, or would you like to do them after we finish each grouping?
Why don't we do it
Okay.
after we finish each grouping, and then that way, we get a little break, and we're not just going.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want me to go back and start it? How would you like to do this now? Do you want to screen share, or do you want me to go back and show images, or?
Yeah, show the images and I'll talk about them. And I think we said after we're all done with this, and I'll go through and I picked 2 images from each group that I'll actually do a little, just a quickie edit to kind of
Okay.
bring the point home. Alrighty. You want me,
I'm going to go back to the beginning.
yeah, okay.
So, shall I just run through them, or will you speak up?
Yeah, I'll talk, and then I'll tell you when to go to the next one when I'm done.
Okay.
So, but do you want me to go through the scores and everything that I gave, or is that something that?
I don't. That'll be available for them to see.
Okay.
You can just give your critique.
Yeah, sure. So this, I mean, obviously, somewhere along the way, you guys went and photographed some egrets, because there's a lot of them, and they're one of my favorite birds. So I really really like that. I really liked this image of the egret because it's got a lot going on with it. I mean, I love the way it's looking down, and it's very expressive. It's got its plumes out, which means it's getting ready to mate, and it's just a really really nice composition. The way the egret is positioned is really nice with what the tree it's perched in and so on. So it just really makes a nice composition. Um, what's going on in the background? I mean, I don't it didn't really affect me that much as far as like the actual image, but it does look like there's I'm not sure if there was something that was done back there digitally or whether it's just the way the contrast translated because it was out of focus, but that would be something I would want to kind of play with a little bit more because it almost looks like it's not natural like the rest of the scene. But again, the foreground is just so nice that that really didn't bother me as much as if this wasn't such a strong image. The only other critique that I would give to this is this image could use a little bit more contrast. You know, mainly because I mean these are bright white birds, and they're really challenging to photograph because of that. I mean, you either a lot of times you get hot spots in the bird and so on, and and this looks like there's plenty of detail in the bird. There may be a couple of highlight issues in some some area, but they're minor, and I'm sure they could be fixed. But I would really like to see this egret just pop right out of the background with a little bit more contrast in the scene. But all in all, just just a really really wonderful image. Okay, this is another egret, and I like a lot about this image. I mean, I love the positioning of the egret because they, when they preen like that, they tend to not look this nice, but every now and then you get it where they're doing some cool thing with their neck and so on. And so that's really nice with this. What I found a little bit troubling with this image is the composition. The bird is just a little bit too far to the left, and it not that I mean I have no problem with people doing interesting compositions and everything, but because of that, just because of the contrast, I kind of wish the bird was a bit more not in the center, but a little bit closer to the center. And this is another one again where the egret this needs even more, I think, contrast this image. I love that the background is really dark, but what I would like to see is the egret to be really, really bright. Because again, these are, if you haven't seen these birds, they're just like super white. And, and it's nice when they kind of, in a shot like this, particularly in black and white, they'll pop right off the page. So, alrighty, we can go to the next one. And we have an egret in flight. And yeah, again, this not an easy thing to do, uh, to catch a bird in flight. And this is nice. The bird's nice and sharp and everything. And I like the way this image looks. My only real critique with this, and again, when you're photographing a bird in flight, you kind of get what you get because you never know where they're going to go, and you're kind of usually panning with your camera and just firing away. But the background here, the birds flying over, particularly where its legs are in the back, the birds flying over that one tree that's sticking up, and it would be nice if that tree wasn't there. I mean, this is just birds in such a graceful position. It obviously just took off because they tuck their neck in once they're in flight, and so this bird just launched off, and it's really that's when they look really really graceful when that happens. But I kind of wish, again, and again, it's you got what you got, and unfortunately, I mean, I photographed these birds enough to know you get what you get. But in a competition, looking at this as art and a a competition worthy photo, uh, I do think in this case the background, particularly where the leg is and where the 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 wing is that at the bottom is kind of merging into the other tree there. I think those two create a little bit of a distraction, but nice image. And yeah, another great image. It's nice when you get the birds doing something and here you've got the bird, with a branch on the side. It's amazing they build these nests by taking one branch at a time. Yeah, it must take them forever to do this. Yeah, and everything about this image is really nice. Again, though, in this, it's and I know you're dealing with a bright sky, and it's hard to it's hard to work with this when you have a white bird and a white sky, but I would love to have seen, again, I guess in this case, almost less contrast where the bird was a little bit whiter because you can see the translucency in the feathers, which is really lovely. But it'd be nice if this was a bit brighter. And then you have, if you look over on the right, those wing feathers, there's a couple of them being cut off. And you could have probably touched that up with a cloning tool to just get that off. I mean, again, it's a wonderful image, but there's, just little things like that tend to, affect the overall quality, and particularly a competition-worthy image and an artistic-worthy image. But again, you've got the secret doing something interesting. You've got nice light and an interesting sky. But I would definitely work this image. I think you can really, really make a super image out of what you have here. Okay, this is a landscape image, and I love when images are backlit. I mean, it's and you've got a nice backlighting situation going on here. Uh, what I find in an image like this, though, is just there is just so much going on here that my eye it doesn't know where to go. And plus you've got your grasses in the foreground are a little bit out of focus. um, you've got that really nice center stalk, which really is the image. I mean, if I was to let me see if I can get bring up some, let me see if I can annotate here. Annotate, yeah, I can. um, so yeah, whoops. Yeah, so I mean, to me, you've got a really nice image right here. And the rest of this image, in fact, even like right there, the rest of this image, you've got a lot of distracting elements that are competing with this. And then here you've got the sun is kind of blown out. You get these great rays coming off it, which are really nice. But it's the sun's kind of blown out. And I know, in the old days of digital photography, you couldn't really do anything about that. But now in post-processing, you can kind of play with that. And I would, yeah, I'd encourage that. I mean, I'd encourage you to go back here and play a little bit and try and really find compositions, because this is a really great thing to kind of figure out visual flow, where you try and figure out like, okay, where's the eye enter the image, where's the eye go within the image, and so on. But it's definitely a really cool spot to photograph, and you really caught a nice time of day. Next. Okay, this is kind of neat. It's a bit more of an abstract. I don't know if it was done in the same area or not, but this is a much cleaner image. In it's like everything seems to be in focus, and there's a really, really nice visual flow to this image. What I'm not liking, or what I'm finding a little bit of a struggle with, one is this cattail here is kind of a distraction. And I mean, obviously you're not going to, I mean, it's there, and yeah, I don't know how you would work around it, but that's kind of a thing. And it's really blown out here, which is, I, my eye goes there and it almost becomes imprisoned in that bright spot. And I really want to kind of go out and wander around the image. So it becomes an issue. And you've got this other kind of bright spot down here, which is kind of a, to me, these are the distracting elements. What's really nice are just these repeating lines of the grasses. I really like how this grass here is broken and it goes back down. You've got this one here that's kind of pointing you into the image. So this actually, maybe with a little rework and post-processing, could become a really, really powerfully strong image. Next. This image, when you think of black and white imagery, this really just meets the definition of black and white. And I really like the way this is done, where, I mean, in reality, I doubt that these mushrooms really looked that separate from their background. Um, I don't know much about mushrooms, but it's, but as a black and white image, you really brought your main subject out of the background by, one, having the dark background be dark and your subject being bright, and two, just blurring out the background because all these I guess this is some kind of mulch or wood chips or something like that. So all this stuff is blurry out in the background, and it really just allows your eye to go directly to the to your subject. And it's a nice grouping of mushrooms. They look like they're in great shape. Looks like they have some dew on them and stuff, which always is a neat thing. My only critique on this is I wish there was a little bit better depth of field. I kind of wish, you know, these mushrooms in the background were a little bit more in focus, and particularly the stems. A little bit, I think this image would be strong, you know, even stronger. But it is really, really a very, very, very nice photograph. Another nice clean image. You know, it's kind of a basic image. The I love the structure of it. I love the texture of these birches. I love the fact that you have the shadow. I think that's really great. Um, there's not though. I mean, it's a great image, but there's, I don't know. It's lacking some kind of power. I mean, everything about it is pretty much right. It's just that you know, with a shot like this, it's you know, I kind of wish there was a little bit more to it. And I don't even know how to recommend what you can do with that. But I really think this is, you know, it's a nicely done image, but it's just, you know, kind of hits at that level. And one of the things I might have done is like some of these little things now, you know, I mean, if you're a purist and you don't want to do anything, but some of these little grasses are a bit distracting in a very, very small way. But I would, yeah, I would have cloned those out just to make the image a little bit cleaner. At least, I mean, that's my style of that, and I think it would work better. But all in all, it's a well processed, very, very nice photograph. This image, I mean, you know, landscape photographer, how can you go wrong with a dramatic landscape like this? Um, this is one of the images I'm going to actually do a little work on. I love the composition. You know, there's a lot going on here. Your eye, I mean, there's a great visual flow to this image where if you follow this ridge line and then you just sort of go around and, you know, it just, and then there's another way into the image here. I mean, it's just really a nicely composed image. It's dramatic weather. It's great light. It's a beautiful scene, you know, with these mountains and what's going on in there and everything. It's just, to me, it needs, because there's so much drama going on here, the processing doesn't show the amount of drama, or you can use post processing to really bring the drama out. And with that, I would just, I mean, really add a lot more contrast and even do some work up in the sky to really kind of darken that sky and really, really bring your attention right into this area of the image, you know, here, which is really what's, you know, it's like, to me, when I look at it, I'm there like, wow, what's going on there? What's the weather like? What would it be like to be in there? It would probably be like really, you know, seriously, you know, heavy weather going on in that little pocket in those mountains there. But nice image, you know, and beautifully composed. Next, um, really, this another image that's done very nicely in black and white. It translates really well. Um, I mean, the horse is really neat. You know, I don't know anything about horses at all, but you know, I love the mane on this horse. I love the coloring. I love the you know, the way you've done the fur and the texturing and everything. Uh, just really nicely done. What I would, you know, you've got these other horses back here, and I find my eye, you know, when I was like looking at this image and judging it, my eye just kept going there. And it really wanted to be, I wanted to interact with the face, but for some reason my eye just kept going there. And, you know, that's something you could fix with the cloning tool. Um, yeah, and so and I think, you know, another thing that might help this image is to just darken the top of the sky a little bit too. Would have been a real good decision as well. Just again, just to kind of use it as a framing device to kind of force you into the horse's face, because it is a really, really interesting looking horse, and you know, and just a wonderful face too as well. Next. Um, yeah, so this is like, you know, zebra lunch, and it took me a while to realize that the lion's eating a zebra. Um, you know, I mean, I get what you're going for with this particular image because you're just going right into the eye. And I think this as a color image might have been stronger. I don't think it works as well in black and white because you're not really seeing the drama in black and white, and and the color, the eye color of the lion is really, interesting when you see them in color with their compared to the coloring of their fur and so on. And you don't get that in a black and white image. And it's so tight, it's almost, it would be nice to see more of what's going on. I mean, I'm sure it's kind of gruesome if this lion is eating a zebra, but that's nature, right? I mean, nature's not always tame and pretty. But yeah, I think this image, just I wish I got to see more of it as well, as opposed to just the eyes of the lion. Next. So this image is got pretty much everything going for it. I mean, it's just really, it's a nice documentary image. And I don't mean that, sometimes people say it's a documentary image, that means it's a bad thing, but I like it. I mean, the image tells a great story. You have these, you've got two species kind of, interacting with each other because they need to get across this water and they need to be around the water and so on. And it's got a great composition where, you've got that zebra in the upper left-hand corner, and it brings you into this diagonal of, everybody kind of working their way across the image. And it's like, everybody's behaving nicely and nobody's fighting with each other. And I just think it's a really, there's a huge story value to this image. And I think that creates a very, very good impact with this photo. Very, very well done. Next. This is a great sort of textury, visual, flowy type image. And, it's really, really, it's a nice image. And this would do, I think, well with a lot more contrast in it, just to really, really bring it out. I mean, I'm sure in color it was like really gorgeous, because these things, they're all reds and oranges and yellows, and it's really nice. But when you do it in black and white, you got to make up for the lack of color with more contrast. And I think with a lot more contrast in this image, it would really bring out the flow of, the waviness of the lines and the rocks and so on, and all that neat erosion. But I would really work that up. And one thing I'd really work up is this little thing right here. I'd love to see a lot more contrast there, because I think that's a really, really powerful kind of almost anchor point to the whole image. Next. There's aspens are a very, very popular thing to photograph, and they're kind of interesting. I always thought they were related to the birch tree, but I found out that they weren't. And this image, it's compositionally, it's going on the concept of that repeating shapes, or create the composition. I think in this image, though, it's just a bit too busy. There's just so much going on here. There's just so many trees and so on. And when you have it in black and white, you don't have colors to distinguish different things that are going on. So I would, I would consider cropping. I know you probably put this together as a panorama. I don't know if you crop it, but I think if you took this image right here, it would be, I think it would be a little bit stronger. I just find it's just got too many trees and it's too wide, and it's just, again, my eye's not sure what to do with this image and where to go in this image. But I think there's some good concept here, though. Next. Nice floor. Anybody who can do a good floor on black and white, you've got my respect. I can't even do a good one in color. So it's it's a really, really, there's nice image here. Just nicely composed. Nice that you used a black background on this, whether you did it in Photoshop or whether you actually had something back there. I really don't care. I think it's a really, really nice concept. Um, just a couple of little, things like with an image like this, it is. I mean, it is what it is. You got it kind of nice and centered and everything. And I think with a composition, I mean, with the way these are set, I think it probably works being centered. But there's a couple things, like you've got this little part of a flower here, and I know you can't really crop it out, because then you would lose, you would lose this part of this flower, and I can kind of see the struggle you had here. But again, this is, why we do post-processing of our images. And I think that could be fixed in post-processing. You've also got, a couple of places where the flower is not in perfect shape here, and it looks like here, where it's just starting to turn. And again with florals, people who do florals as their specialty, they just really, really know how to work the image to make it, spectacular. And it's such so with that, when you're doing florals, you really, really have to try and make it as perfect as possible. But again, doing something like this in black and white, it worked out really well here. You've got great contrast, you've got great subject, and everything. So yeah, nicely done. Let's go to the next one. Um, Nice image. I mean, one thing, a lot of people who do wildlife and all this stuff, they hate the back end shot, or what they call the butt shot. But I think it works here. You've got, because this here, there's a nice composition. You've got this nice kind of almost implied triangle going on here, which is kind of neat. Um, I think the way this bug is colored makes for a really, really nice translation into black and white. Uh, the only thing that, again, when you do something like this, we look for, this is really the heart and soul of the bug, is the head area with the eyes, and it's a little bit soft. And I wish there was a little bit more depth of field in this image, where this was nice and sharp, and I almost wish this was sharper, although this doesn't bother me as much. But with this, it's like I really want to, you know, I'm I'm enjoying looking at the back part of this bug, and I'm going right into the eye area here, and I'm seeing it soft, and I'm not getting what I want. So, but this composition is really, really nice. All right, let's go with the next one.
And that I think is, oh, I'm sorry, two more.
Yeah, there's two more. There's churn. Um, this this is an interesting image, because you've got this thing right here. To me, it's a disruptive element, but it's not a distracting element. It's kind of almost like an anchor point, where you go there and it's pointing you into the scene. And so it's like you're there, you start there, and then you work your way into the ocean. And it's really, it's nice. This is an image, I think, again, I mean, I don't want to come off like a broken record, but here, this is another image which could really use some nice contrast, particularly in here with the whites of the foam and everything. I think that would really, just like this really stands out because it's white against the darker background. I think here you could bring the whiteness out by bringing it out a little bit more against the grayish background of the rest of the water. And then the one thing I would probably crop this image like right along here, because this wave is really neat, but because it's cut off, it's like my eyes going like, I want to see more of this wave. But if the wave wasn't there, then I would just be focusing on, you'd really have three elements in this image. You'd have, this, you'd have this rock here and this rock here. And so that would make a really, really neat thing. And it's all surrounded by this great water. So this image, I think, has a lot of potential, and it could be easily worked to really become, super, super strong. Alrighty, next one. Um, I love this image. This is another image I'm going to be reworking for you guys tonight. I love the sky. I mean, I'm a sucker for nice dramatic sky and great clouds and everything. What I mean, I know what you're going for here. You were getting this cloud reflecting in the beach here. But with me, I'm kind of feeling like there's almost two images here. And this whole beach to me is like kind of, it's not, there's not enough there. I mean, there's so much drama in the sky, not enough drama in the rest of the image. Plus you've got, I don't know if this is a reflection or whether there were some, you know, actually some plants here, bushes, but they're kind of a bit of a distraction. And then you end up with your horizon line right in the middle, which, I don't think that's absolutely, a bad thing. It's not an evil thing to have that. But to me, I think this image would be a lot more dramatic if we cropped it, like say right about here, and then really brought out the contrast of this amazing cloud. I mean, it's just absolutely gorgeous. But The rest of the stuff, I think, kind of makes it almost like it's two images. Alrighty, and that's it for this group, right?
Yes, it is. Thank you, Rich. That was really excellent. Thank you.
Sure.
So we'll move on to Class B, nature. Peking, Charlie Bevins. High Noon, Charlie Bevins. Mexican Strawflower by Mia Karam. Iris by Mia Coram. Looking at Me by Debbie Pat. Bachelor Herd by Debbie Pat. Momentary Respite by Jackie Henney. Nature's Ballet by Jackie Henney. Up Close by Karen Lay. Before the Break by Karen Lay. Tree by Tom Russo. Beauty from Behind by Tom Russo. And the award winners are honorable mention, Mia for Iris, got honorable mention. Charlie got third place for Peeking Out. Jackie got second place for Momentary Respite. And Jackie got first place for Nature's Ballet. And with that, Rich, I'll go back and bring them up for you to critique.
Okay. This is a really interesting composition. It kind of breaks the rules, but it breaks the rules in a really good way. And the reason why is because you've got, even though you've got everything that's going on in this image is on the left-hand side, and then you've got absolutely nothing going on the right-hand side, but it's basically negative space. But because you have this kind of neat contrast between bright and, in the gray area, it just creates this kind of weird imbalance of balance. And, it's really, I applaud you for going with this composition. Some judges might tell you, oh yeah, well, you need to just crop it right here, but then it just becomes another photo of a bird sticking his head out of a cactus, which I guess is not common, but at least not in this part of the world. But it's neat. And the only real critique of this image I could be is that to me the bird looks a little soft, particularly the beak. It looks like you've got a nice sharp catch light in the eye, but when I look at the highlight on the head, particularly here, it looks a little soft and the beak looks a little soft. But yeah, again, it's like these kind of images, they just happen and you got to just be there with your camera and you gotta work it. But all in all, like really just a super powerful composition. Next. So this tree, I love trees. I mean, I'm all about trees. And the thing that intrigued me a lot about this image is you've got the tree in front of this tree here, which it could be a bush, but it looks to me like it's another tree on the other side of the hill. And I think that was a neat, if that was a neat thing to do with your image. where, where I think this image, it's the name. I'm actually going to work this image a little bit, and this image needs more contrast because just the title is high noon, but it doesn't feel like high noon. And I think with that, I'll go do a little bit more when I do the edit. But I really think it needs to be a bit more, particularly brightness in the sky. And I think this becoming a high contrast image would be good. I also think, even though the other one I was like raving about the composition, I think on this image, if you cut all this off right here and just kept this little patch of grass and everything, I think it would be it's a much better composition because this part isn't really doing anything for your photograph at all. So crop more contrast, you can really, really make this thing uh, very powerful. I mean, it's a good image as it is. It's just, it can be much, much better. Next. Um, this is a beautifully processed image. I mean, the black and white is just stunning. Your light is really nice. You got amazing detail in these flowers and so on. The thing that just is to me is a bit unfortunate is it's just too busy. Again, my eyes not knowing where to go. You've got the a big part of your composition is this flower right here, and it's a little soft. And then you've got all this stuff here, which is just kind of distracting my eye, and then all this other stuff going on. And I want to really stay in this image because the black and white quality of it is just so amazing. But there's no visual flow here at all, and it's tough because all these flowers are growing together, and it'd be nice, I mean, for all I know, they could be silk flowers. It's hard to tell, um, but it's just it's there's a lot of beauty here, but I think we need to kind of isolate stuff out and really, really kind of look for what's the best part of a composition like this. Uh, Next, this is really nicely done. Funny. It was funny that this image came to me because just before I I got these images from Vince to critique. I was paddling on one of our rivers and in the Pine Barrens, and we get these irises that grow along the side of the river at this time as a wildflower. And I was like trying to figure out how to photograph it, and I was struggling with it because they're so beautiful, but the way they're shaped is they're really sparse because you get these three petals and everything. And I really like what you did here with this image. It's really nicely done. The fact that you isolated sort of the best part of the flower. Um, and your translation into black and white works really good. Whereas like this would be like the last flower in the world I'd ever think of making black and white. So I applaud you for going down that road. A couple little things is, I kind of wish we saw more of this here. We see these two here, and this also is equally as nice as the other two. And I kind of wish there was more of it. And then I kind of wish there was, you can in post processing go through and kind of blur the background a little bit more. And I think that would help this image too, and really keep us focusing right on your kind of nice sort of triangular composition here. Because all these things back, I tend to go back there and I get a little distracted. But still, I mean, nice job, and really, kudos for thinking you can put an iris in black and white and make it work. Um, Next. Okay, so this is a, I mean, I love the expression of this animal. He's like looking right at you, and he's like trying to figure out, do I need to be pissed at you or do I need to just kind of ignore you? And he's eating his lunch there and everything. Um, this image, I think the composition, it's just kind of just too jammed in the lower left-hand corner. This would do really well with a nice tight crop, I think. And then all these grasses become a framing element as opposed to, just a place for your eye to wander off into. And then when I look at, I mean, I'm not sure if this is like cropped out of a much bigger image. It looks like there's a lot of pixelization going on here. And it really looks like the eye area is soft. I really wish, again, when you photograph animals, if you get nothing else in focus, it really, the eye should be focused because that's the personality of the animal. That's where, you really want to go. And I'm getting a kind of softness there. So with that, but all in all, I mean, it's it's definitely it's a very, very expressive image. Next. Um, This is very interesting photo. I'd like to know more what a bachelor herd is, but I guess it's all males, and they don't have mates. But this is an image that could do with a crop and contrast, and this is one of the ones I'm going to be reworking for you. But this definitely, if we crop this, and I can't draw a straight line to save my life, but if we cropped it kind of like this, none of this stuff is really helping your image. What it does when you crop it like that, and we'll see it when I actually do crop it, you get this nice kind of, really nice kind of leading line into the image. And even though where your eye sort of ends up at the butt of this one animal here, um, it still works just because of it's really neat the way these everything's positioned here. So yeah, really nicely done. But I think it does need a little bit more work. Next. Um, Kudos for getting any kind of bee like this, or the fact that you're photographing it and not worrying about getting stung or anything like that. But it's really nice the way this whole thing works. What really got me on this image is you've got the bee, and then you've got this little thing here, and they just work really well together. Um, I mean, you could have almost cropped this image, and I'm not saying you should have, but you could have almost cropped this image like this, and it would just be equally good. However, I do like this in here, although I do wish there was just a tad more detail, and it looks like there's detail there. If you kind of darkened this a little bit and brought out the contrast, I think it would. I think it would make this image really even stronger. But it is really, really nice composition and nicely seen. Um, Next, this image kind of, this way every now and then something knocks your socks off, and this definitely did it. I mean, this really just beautiful. It's really not about what this is, and I love that you call it nature's ballet, because it really looks like these things, these little seed pods here are just bouncing beautifully, and almost like look like ballet slippers, just on here. But you've got this beautiful kind of S shape right here, and it just really works so nicely for me. Just the way it works. Again, I don't look at it as a plant. I look at it as an abstract shape, and it works really well. And it just even, all this stuff here. Normally I might recommend you get rid of it, but I don't think you need to. And then just even the background, you've got these highlights and shadows, here, a nice highlight leading into a nice shadow, and, same thing worked all the way around your image, creating this really, really wonderful framing device. So, I just love what you did with this photograph. Next. Um, Great shot of flowing water. Very, very, once you learn how to do it, you can become addicted to it. I learned years ago, and I still just love photographing flowing water. Um, but one thing when you do a waterfall like this, and it must have been a really big one, is it's just water flowing and there's no context to the image. I mean, I like the fact that you've got it all in a nice diagonal going, you're creating these nice diagonal lines, but I really wish I could see more of the waterfall because it really is interesting. And then you've got like this plant here, and then there's another kind of branch sticking into your image here. So that again makes me think, like, where's that coming from, where's that, it makes me curious, and I want to see more of this waterfall. So this would have been probably a much stronger image if we saw more of it. And another option would be to kind of just crop out those things here and just work with this part of the image and make it maybe more contrasty, and then it becomes more of an abstract and not necessarily a waterfall photograph. Next. Um, Basically the same comment. I like the other one a bit better just because it had some nice diagonals going on. But with this one, Yeah, again, I'm looking and I really wish I could see more of this waterfall, not just because of the plants, but here I can even see a bit of it more. And it's like my eye just wants to kind of work its way up there and see what's going on up there as well. And then even just seeing a little bit more of where the water's flowing here as well. I think it would be, again, if I mean, I don't know where this is, or you can go back there, but I'd like to see, I'd love to see a much wider shot. Your exposure and everything is really good, and everything, but I just think this image we need to see more of this wonderful waterfall. Next. Um, yeah, I love the drama in the sky and everything. It's just really, it's nice. I like, this is kind of neat that you have your tree centered. And I think this is a kind of composition that works really well here. However, I think it might be a little bit stronger if you cut it here. And the reason why is because you've got these trees here and you've got nothing here balancing it. And when you center something, it's either got to be way out of whack, your background, and you said it'd be way out of whack, or it has to be absolutely, it's got to be just a pure symmetry. And we don't have that here in this image. There's also some, your highlight here is kind of blown out, and it's also kind of blown out along here. And I kind of wish there was a little bit more detail in the sky there. And I know this is tough to do. And then you've got a couple sensor spots here, which is, again, those are very easy to fix. And it really, they really shouldn't be there at all. But yeah, I would see if you could bring more detail out of this area, and I definitely would try this cropped like this. I think you might find it to be a much more balanced image. But nice. Okay, next one here. So I always applaud people who photograph flowers from the back, because it is kind of like it is kind of taking a little stretch, and I think you did a good job with this because you had really nice light on the flower. I love the highlights, that you've got, particularly in here. I love the highlights on these little like you know, hairy things that are coming off the flower, and that's really great. What you the issue is the background. It's just way too busy, and it would be nice if you could find this flower without the background, or if you could have pushed the background out of the way and made the image. But when it's all out of focus like it is here, it's not so bad. But when you've got really distinct things that are competing with the rest of your main subject, basically, it becomes like really, really hard to kind of keep your eye on this flower. Next.
That was it there.
Oh, that's it. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, it's a small group. All righty.
Let's see, where am I? Over here. We'll go back to class A and do nature. Oh, no, pictorial.
Pictorial. Yeah.
Yep. Nature pictorial, yes. Okay. Misty Morning by Ivan Bubb. Looking Sharp, Mate by Ivan Bubb. On the Border by Bill Coughlin. Fishing at Antietam by Bill Coughlin. Rising, Bob Gross. Quiet Reflections by Bob Gross. Party Dress by Jenny Lodge. Keep Good Feet Healthy by Jenny Lodge. Confined by Vince Pellegrini. Springtime by Vince Pellegrini. Eel Trap Bridge by Lee Reeves. Cargo Shed by Lee Reeves. Kayaker by Jeff Schaefer. Alone on the Dunes by Jeff Schaefer. Snug by Tom Story. Working Town by Tom Story. Honorable mention, Jenny Lodge, Keep Good Feet Healthy. Third place, Snug by Tom Story. Eel Trap Bridge by Lee Reeves, second place. And first place, Rising by Bob Gross. There you go, Rich.
Okay, so I love the mysterious nature of this image. You know, it's just really yeah, I like it. You got this woman walking down the way, and you know, in the background you can just barely see that building in the background, and it just, you know, it just leads you right into the image. And I like above you got the framing element of these, you know, these trees without the leaves on it, and I think that also kind of adds sort of the eerie, surreal nature of something like the of this image. I like a lot. This image really, the one thing I'd love to see in an image like this is more contrast. I really would like to see it kind of brighter here, and you know, really try to separate her out of the walkway a little bit more. And I think this would become, I mean, it's a great image. And I think with that, it would become like a really, really super strong image. But, you know, nicely done and nicely seen. Next. I love photographing reenactors, and they love being photographed. So it's a marriage made in heaven when you work with these guys and girls. Um, so yeah, there's a nice little story going on here. I mean, I love the expression on the guy who's sitting down, and the, you know, the guy's kind of fixing his tie or whatever it is he's working there on the uniform. So it's a nice kind of moment going on. Um, I do wish when you photograph this, you were a little bit more to the left and you could see this guy's face a little bit more, because it looks like there's an equally interesting expression going on there. And I think with that, you would have gotten this relationship that you know, that you kind of, you know, I always look for that, particularly in photographing reenactors, because they're reenacting history. And so when you do that, you know, one of the things when soldiers are, you know, in battle together and war together, they build these bonds that are just, you know, almost as strong, if not stronger than family bonds. And so I think if you saw both their faces, I think it would have been really a cool, I think it would have been a much better image. And also, I think you may had a cleaner background, because the one thing that's going, this, I find all this stuff up here to be really distracting, and it takes away from that moment. So even just cropping right there, I think would really be really helpful to kind of, you know, kind of isolate that, you know, and even, you know, might even get away with taking away, you know, just like kind of work something here, and it might work a little bit better. And then it's, you know, then it's all about this guy's like cool expression on his face, as well as the uniforms, and, you know, of course the knife and all that other stuff is just makes it really interesting. But and again, bump the contrast up on this one as well. But yeah, neat image. I'm trying to figure out what these guys are. Yeah, I mean, I'm real familiar with American Army stuff because I do a lot of American reenactments. But yeah, just trying to figure out what time period these guys are, and you know, what they're all about as far as where they're. I guess mate must mean there must be British or something like that. But it's neat image. Next one. So this is, to me, an attempt to take a basic building. I mean, it's on the border, it's a chain restaurant and so on, and do something with it by doing HDR. Um, I'm yeah, and I'm not a big fan of HDR, but when HDR is done right, I'll I'll it's like wouldn't have been something I would have done, but when it's done right, it's really it's done well. I'm having some issues with this image, and one of it is like there's when you do HDR, you have side effects, and those side effects have to be dealt with. And in this particular image, you've got noise up in the sky. It's a cool sky with the way you did it, but you really need to get rid of the noise. The other side effect of um, HDR is halos, and you've got a really bad halo going on right here around that, and really just is it's affecting to me the drama of the image that's going on there. I mean, whereas there's some haloing going on here, doesn't bother me as much because it kind of really sort of brings out the texture of the building. But when you're dealing with HDR and you're just letting that stuff go, I think you really need to rethink how you were planning on processing this image, and and try a different tact with it. Um,
Rich,
Next,
I believe this was infrared.
okay, but it's coming off as I mean, I've seen infrared. It's coming off as like overdone HDR. So I don't know if they ran it through an HDR program, like a single image HDR program, but it's not. To me, it's between the noise and the haloing, I'm having some issues. And even, I mean, if you really get nitpicking, some of the details in here are not translating really well and so on. And I think with an image like this, when you're dealing with a straight up building, um, particularly nothing that's like an architectural gem or something like that, you really need to kind of you really need to do something to bring it out. And I think you attempted here, but there's just some technical stuff here that I find pretty problematic. Um, this is probably another HDR image, I would imagine, and yeah, it's nice. Yeah, it's a nicely done image. Um, it's the composition is really neat. I kind of like the relationship of you know that you've got going on here. It creates a nice little triangle, and here it's like infrared really works. I mean, it's another thing I've never really done. I mean, I shot infrared film back in the day and everything once in a while. It's not my thing, but I really respect people who do it. What I would say issue wise with this image is the one thing. You've got the guy and he's kind of looking this way, so it's kind of takes him out of the nice composition. And in something like that, I mean, if you really really wanted this image to work and you really want to play with it, I mean, usually if you just tell someone, hey, I'm taking a picture, and do you mind? And if it could I get you to move a little bit to the one side, and then it would create something. Yeah, I think it would have been a really really that little thing like that would have gone a long way to really create this visual flow. And I think maybe a crop right here, or somewhere along the way. I think with less. I mean, this is kind of a neat thing, and it's almost a subject unto itself. But I think just showing a little bit of it, and this dam back here, and this guy facing the other way, I think would have been a really, I think it'd be a really cool image. You could probably, I mean, if you're a Photoshop guy, you could probably, flip him and make that work. Um, Next, this is a really neat image. I'm a sucker for mist when it's done right, and I just like this. I mean, I like it. I mean, even though somebody might say, oh well, it's like totally burned out here, but if you've ever seen sun hit the mist, it can actually create that. And I think it works really well because what it does is it really brings these guys out really nicely. I mean, they're totally in silhouette, and it just works really really well with this image. I love the way they're positioned. I love how you've got this sort of this dark area here, but yet there's this mist rising from the water, And you can just imagine what it would feel like to be out there fishing, in conditions like that. And to me, I just would be too busy looking around. I probably wouldn't catch anything. But it's just all in all, just a super beautiful image. Maybe a tad more contrast might help this image, but I'm not even sure it would. It's just really, really just nicely done. Um, yeah, another interesting image. Guy in the water. I love that you can actually see the fishing line here. If you really, you can actually see the, and I think that's like really neat. I love the wave, the little wavelets going out from him standing in the water and everything. I just kind of wish with this image, I know your intent was probably to keep him in total silhouette. Even just the way you have like the highlights on his face and along here, it looks like you're really just going for very, very high contrast. But for some reason, I just feel like I wish, because there's so much detail in the rest of the image, I kind of wish there was just a little bit of detail in his back. And I think it would really just kind of bring out, the fact that he's backlit a little bit more and everything. I think it would just make this image just a bit more better. Next. Um, I like this a lot. I love the composition. Doing this, it's, you can say it's almost a kind of a product shot, but it's and I'm gonna play with this. The one thing this works because there's so much texture in this image and it's not really coming across. I think a lot more contrast in this image would really, really, really be helpful. Um, and just another thing is that whenever you do something like this, depth of field is critical, and whatever these are here, they're kind of dropping into the out of focus area, and same thing here. They're a little bit out of focus, and when you do stuff like this, you really just got to be very, very careful with that. Everything in an image like this is just tack sharp, but it's a neat composition, and as we'll see when I play with this image, we can really bring this thing to life. Next. Um, it's interesting. I just like, to me, it's like this hit sort of something with me. There's not anything like, oh wow, this is like the wow shot of wow, but it just, to me, it just tells a neat story about, keeping, keep good feet healthy. And you've got these, pictures of these kids here, and obviously these shoes are kind of really worn out. And whether these are the shoes that actually came in this box at one time, yeah, I really don't know, but it's just, um, yeah, it tells a whole story about, you know, time passing and how like we, at one time, we thought shoes like this were like really good, but now you look at what people wear, with these modern high tech sneakers and everything, and yeah, it really is like these probably weren't keeping our feet healthy at all. Yeah, and I think too, a little bit tighter crop on an image like this might help it just a little bit to really kind of really bring our attention right to the story, which is the shoes on top of the box. But yeah, neat image and nicely processed. Um, Next. Um, so this image is, there's a lot going on in this image. There's just so many fences, and I it's almost a little bit too much for me, in my eye. I kind of wish this was. I mean, I like this tree here, and I really, really like this little building here. But for some reason, even though if you look at the fence posts, they're straight up and down, so it's not crooked, but it almost looks like the building's crooked. But I don't know. I If it was my image, I may have cloned the building out, and I probably would crop this right here to get rid of these horse trailers because I don't think they're doing anything for it, and I think it might tend to kind of simplify the image a little bit because I think ultimately we're trying to get here and taking a real kind of crazy path to it. But I think that, and then another thing, I think a bit more contrast in this image too might work. If we really got these fences nice and white, it might also, that contrast might tend to um, uh, lower the busyness of this composition. But it's neat. I think it's a I think you can work this image and really come up with something. I'm trying to think if this is that fence thing on what is it, on 539, I believe there's a farm with all fences around it like that. And I think this might be there. I always love looking at that when I drive by it. Um, anyway, next image. Um, I like this image as a still life. I mean, I really like what's going on here. I love this hook. I actually have one of these hooks. I found it somewhere in an abandoned building, and I was allowed to keep it. And I thought it would be really heavy, but it was actually hollow. It's really, but I think it's neat when the texture of it and everything. I think unfortunately, I think where this image falls short is I really wish all this back here was in focus because it's kind of a neat scene, and I wish I could see all of it. And I know you're probably just looking to highlight this thing here, but I think in perspective to where it is. I think if this was all sharp in here, I think it would be more. I would I to me it would just feel more to me as like something like, yeah, all this fits together and it works really, really nicely. And then maybe even, I don't know. I mean, you obviously can't crop it because you got this here, but these things here somehow with contrast or maybe even doing a vignette to kind of darken that part just so that your eye does these things can lead you out of the image if you're yeah. And I think a little bit of vignetting up there might keep that from happening. Uh, Next, I like this image a lot. I mean, this could be a very, very busy photograph, but um, to me, this really just it acts as an anchor point, and it says, "Okay, I want you to see this, but I want you to get there by going this way." And in that, it almost kind of separates it separates your subject from everything else, even though you've got this city skyscape in the background and a lot of light and everything. You could probably darken this and darken the background here, and that might help separate it out a little bit. But really, just to me, this relationship of composition is just really it just really makes this image really, really work. Next. Um, I love that you got really low here, and I love that you made the reflection in the puddle. That's and the black and white processing is really nice. Um, it's just this is a very, very busy scene. There is a lot going on here, and even though you're creating some semblance of symmetry in the image by using a reflection, which really helps a lot, you've got this kind of splotchy area here, which I guess this is stuff floating on the water, or else the concrete is showing through on this. But I would encourage you to next time it rains to go back here if you can, and you know look at, instead of taking the entire image, is just look at, see if you can make a relationship of, say, like just this wall here with this graffiti with the reflection. Same thing here. You got really nice graffiti here. There's almost like images within this image, but just as a whole it just is really busy and my eyes just wandering all over the place. um Alrighty, and I think that's it, right? I know there's this one. Oh, let me get rid of this.
There are a
So
couple more.
okay, yeah, all right. Yeah, all right, I'm looking at the wrong thing. Um, okay, yeah. So this, I love what you did with the really high contrast here, but I think with an image like this, when you go that route, and you're almost going into high key territory, you really need to kind of get rid of all this stuff here. All these things need to kind of, it would be nice if it was just a kayaker. It would be nice that then you have the trees. So you have these three trees here and the kayaker and maybe some a little bit of reflection, but everything else in this image is just totally clean. And and I know again, you get the kayaker and he's doing whatever he's doing, but I kind of wish he wasn't paddling out of the image. I kind of wish he was paddling into the image. So it's like if he was, if you could have asked him to turn around and he's like paddling into these like dead cut off trees here. Yeah, I think it would be really interesting. But as a result, end result, what I have is I see like two images, right? You got this image here and then you've got these three trees here. In fact, these three trees would actually make a really strong image on their own. Um, but yeah, with those types of things, I think you've got something going on here. It just needs a bit more. Next. Um, this is another image I'm going to be editing too. I like this concept of this image a lot. Um, you know, I really like it, but with dunes and everything, and I know you have like soft light because it's an overcast day, but I think contrast in this image would work really, really well. And we'll see that when I do it. I love it. You really get a sense of perspective because there's a person right there, and it says like, okay, this dune isn't 2 feet high. It's very, very high. And then, whenever you're out on dunes, and I've been to Death Valley several times, and there's certain dunes that are just, you know, they're overused. And what I like to do is just wait because usually the wind at night will get rid of all the footprints, but there's just a lot of footprints here, here and here and here. And, you know, to be honest, if this was mine, I would clone them all out and just really, really, because your title is Alone on the Dunes. It's telling the story like almost like there's someone all by themselves in this desert and they're wandering through it, even though that's obviously not really happening because lots and lots and lots of people have been here. But I think without the footprints, it would really, really make the story that you're trying to tell here even better. Next. This is a nice image, just nicely processed. You've got a great sky. Um, I like the composition. Yeah, I even when I first looked at this image, I kind of was thinking, yeah, I kind of wish there was more of this structure, whatever it is. But then as I looked at it more, and I realized, no, not really. I mean, I got to stop looking at it as architecture and start looking at it as line, shapes, texture, and tonality. And I think it works the way it is because I like this image is. I mean, the window here is almost in the center, but but it is in the lower third, so it's kind of not. It works, because you've got you've got this leading you here, you've got the roof line here leading you here, and then you've got a lot of nice texture in the background with the ocean and the sky and everything. I just think it's really yeah, this is a nicely handled image. Um, Maybe bringing out the white on this window a little bit more would be really would be just even make the image a little bit stronger, and then I would clone this out, whatever this is. It's just kind of, I think if it was just an even field of grass, it would be really nice. But really, really just a super well done image, and you really work the textures of your scene very nicely here. And so with this one, it's there's two things there's a relationship here I really like, and I like the way this boat is relating to this boat. I think there's a whole story there. The issue with this is that there's a lot of other story in this image. There's just a lot going on here, and this is a tough scene to photograph. And when you use a telephoto lens, which you use here, it just makes the compression makes it even more because your layers are now like squashing together. And it's just all this stuff going on in the background I find like super distracting. And I'm really liking what's going on here, but I just keep getting drawn into the background, and there's just so much going on. And I know you shot what you saw and everything, but it's just this is a tough image to make work because there's just so much going on here. And and maybe cropping here might help, but I don't know how much. And then just with this, I mean, to me, this is a personal thing. When you have these like old towns like this, and you really kind of want to look, kind of imagine what it would be like back when, 100 years ago or so. But then you see the modern cars here, they act kind of as a distracting element too. But again, there's not much you can do about that. I mean, you're kind of like faced with a scene and you made the best of what you had to work with on this. Um, but I really hope you kind of like, this is a neat boat. I hope you have like some photos of this boat just by itself because it's kind of, It's a neat old wooden boat. It is wood. It's hard to tell, but it's a neat old boat. Um, and I believe now we're done, right?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay.
This is Charlie Bevan's Misleading Lines, Class B pictorial. We're in now. Charlie Bevan's Silhouette. Mia Curran, Maple Seeds. Mia Curran, In Flight. Debbie Pat, New Fencing. Debbie Pat, Backyard. Jackie Henney, New York City Public Library Window. Jackie Henney, Lancaster County Sunday. Karen Lay, Inside Lights. Karen Lay, Smoke and Mirrors. Kathy Petrellis, Introducing Miss Scarlet. Kathy Petrellis, Long Walk Home. Tom Russo, Gettysburg Soldier. Tom Russo, Old Time Service. And the winners are, for honorable mention, In Flight by Mia Curran. Third place, NYC Public Library Window, Jackie Henney. Second place, Maple Seeds by Mia. And first place, Misleading Lines, Charlie. And this is the last group then, Rich, to go through.
Yep. Alrighty. So I really like this image. I'm all about finding, found beauty basically. And somehow you looked up, you saw this crazy light and said like there's art here. And you really I like the way you photographed it. I like the way you processed it. I like the fact that you're kind of you've got these the beams are diagonal, right? And but yet you've got all these like kind of straight lines, and then you got all these light bulbs. And it's just really just it's a simple image, but it's just so perfect. And I love the way you processed it. It just really it's an image where everything just comes together and works really beautifully. Good job. Next. Um, yeah, I love the drama in the sky here, but I think going silhouette with your foreground, I think is kind of tough because there's just so much there that you need something, and it's just to me, it's not. It's the image isn't working. It looks to me like the silo is a little crooked, and I don't know if it was leaning or whether it's just the image was cocked a little bit. And then whenever you work your sky, um, when you really bring out the drama in a sky like this, when you have an area like this that's just totally blown out, particularly on the corner, it's just like your eye just goes there and it just works its way right out of the image. So I would, if you can rephotograph this maybe at a different time of day, I think there's something here. But I think, the way you've done the image here, there's just too much going on, and there's not enough impact in this image. Next. This is another, beautiful little, whether it was a found image or whether you arrange these little maple things this way, it just works really well. And I just like it. I like the fact that it's nice and sharp, but you knocked your background out of focus to the point where all those little highlights back there become, they help the image. They don't detract from the image. So I think that's really neat. I would, I would right here, this thing I would tone down just because it's the one area where that out of focus background's not working and it's just a little too bright. And I'm not saying it's going to be better or not. And I probably should have played cloning it out just because I had these images. But I'm not sure if this stick works or not. But I'm not sure that it's actually making the image. So yeah, I do these a lot where I clone stuff out in a way that you can undo it. And a lot of times I like, I don't like that. And then I realize, oh no, the whole image falls apart because it's not there. But yeah, in all reality, it's neat and it's a nice composition. You've got everything nice and even. If you look, you've got, these things are nice and even. These things are nice and even. This is nice and even here. So it's really just super neat. Again, whether you made this or whether you found this, just really well done and very well processed. Next. Um, this image was like I was going back and forth on this image, and I realized it's like I have no idea how you did this. I mean, I understand these whatever these wings are sitting on some type of mirrored surface, but it works really well. I mean, it becomes like really abstract, and I don't know if you made that background or whether that background was there with the flower in the right hand side and so on, but this image just kind of works really nicely. Um, a couple things that like there's like these little spots here I probably would have cloned out. Just kind of make your surface a little bit more even and so on, and maybe just a little try to bring a little detail out of some of these little dark areas here. uh, would just make a good image even better. Next. um, I think this is one of the images I'm going to rework, and this I like the composition of this image a lot because you got nice leading lines with the fence. um, You've got enough mist and fog in the background there to kind of, tone down the distractions of the buildings that are all back there and everything, and it makes it work really nicely. Um, just again, I'm going to work this and show you how the contrast works, but this image would, and it's hard because when you photograph mist and fog, you don't want too much contrast, but then you don't want too little contrast either. So we're going to play with this a little bit and see what we can do with it. Let's go to the next one. Okay. So here, there's a lot of nice stuff with this image. I love the walkway, and whoever designed this walkway was really, looking at this as a scene. I love the two trees, how they relate to each other, and then the whole thing is framed with the shack. Um, I'm I'm not that enamored. This again looks like maybe overdone HDR. I'm seeing like a halo around this tree here, halo here, and so on. And I think because you've got nothing in the sky, and you've got so much texture here, um, I think cropping this image right here would solve your problem because you're also losing detail. All these little things of your tree they're just being lost in that really bright sky. So I think if you crop all that stuff out, you would solve the problem here. And I would rework the processing to get rid of the halos and maybe In this image, there's really no black point either. There's no dark part. And, kind of work that as well. And when I do my Lightroom thing, I'll show you how to do that really quickly. Next. Um, I like this image. It's a nice architectural shot. It's really, really nicely composed. Everything is nice and symmetrical here, but yet your street is anything but symmetrical. And I think the way I don't know, there's almost a story here with like the busyness and chaos of the city, yet, but from inside the library, you're just framing it in this beautiful architecture. And if you look, even these like, I'm not sure what these things are here. There's some kind of architectural detail, some kind of cornice or something, but they're just, you've got them just perfectly symmetrical, and this whole image just works because of that. Really, really nicely done. Next. Um, I love the way this image is processed, and I love that you're using a framing element up here with these trees. And I love that you respected these people by not photographing them from the front, because they really do not like to get their picture taken. So it's nice that you did that. Where there's, I would have wanted to rework this image is you've got her head merging into his head here. And I think that's it's kind of, to me, problematic. What I would have, would also love to see is this guy's actually looks like he's pushing a stroller, and the stroller looks really kind of almost contemporary compared to the way they're dressed. Kind of neat to see a little bit more of that. Would have been a little bit sort of like one of these things where you compromise your principles in order to have some kind of convenience. But yeah, so that's that. But again, the black and white quality of this image is really, really nice. Next. I like this image too. I like, yeah, you see a lot of covered bridges, but they're usually really dark. So here you've got this thing's all lit up. I don't know if these are holiday lights or what they are, whether they're always that way, but it really kind of solves that problem of the dark covered bridge. And it kind of leads you right through the image, and it's really neat. And I like I like that there's a house here, and it's a it's just kind of a neat thing. And then you've also I'm not sure if this is in, I know if this is in Lancaster. I know there's a covered bridge that's in a park, and so it's not on a regular road, so you don't have all the stuff that they put with the signs of the clearance height and those yellow and black diagonal warning signs and everything. I'm not sure if this is that bridge or not, um, but it's it's nice that you kind of got rid of all the modern elements of this as well. But nicely done image. Next. Um, another well done black and white and well done steam. Well done uh, image. It looks to me like you used a brush in Photoshop to make the steam, which is nice. I mean, it's good use of that. Which is kind of almost makes it look like this thing's actually working and it's a real locomotive. Um, I think with your composition though, I wish that if you have this nice reflection of the of this engine, but where it's cut off, and and then you've got these kind of like highlights here that are real, and it's almost looks like there's some distortion in the reflection as well. As you see, the cow catcher here is nice and sharp, but yet you see like multiple cow catchers in the image. So that's kind of, so I think with this image, a tighter crop along here would have been really good, or rephotograph it and show as a symmetrical image with the, with the full reflection of the engine along with it. But again, I like what you did with the steam here. I think that's a very clever idea to kind of bring this little thing to life. Next. Nothing like being staring face to face with a cow. Yeah, I like that you really, got really close to this cow and took its picture. Your processing, I think, is just it's not working for me. You've got really just, all these hot spots all over the place. And maybe it's your intention to go very high contrast, but to me, it's just, your eye goes there and you want to see detail. And what happens is because you have those hot spots, the head of the cow is actually merging in with the sky here, and even the back is merging in. So this image, I think compositionally it's really nice, but I think it needs to be reprocessed to try to make it to really bring the cow out of the background, basically, and not have it blend into the background or merge into the background so much. Next. Yeah, this image, I mean, I had mentioned to Vince that I don't think this is actually a monochrome image. To me, it looks like a duotone, because you've got kind of a yellow color here, and it's kind of green here. But all in all, it's kind of, I mean, there's potential in this image. It's kind of neat because there's like all this busyness, but yet we've got this guy here. And I think the way to really make this image work is to really kind of brighten him up a little bit more, and maybe even try and work out some of the background here. I mean, you have a car here, and again, I don't know what the skill set of the person making this image, because I'm like telling you to do things that require a lot of Photoshop chops. But if you kind of work this image a little bit more, it could really do well. I think it'd be really nice. Yeah, again, a little bit more contrast. Maybe work it as a color image, and if you have the ability to kind of take some of the distractions out of the background, I think this image would be really kind of interesting. Next. Another reenactor, and I'll be working this guy over a little bit to kind of show you some stuff with this. I love his expression, but his face is in shadow, and it makes it look really dark. And I think we would need to bring that out a little bit and really kind of make him. To me, I'd like to. It's almost like the background the sky could be a little darker and he could be a little brighter, and just bring a little bit more texture out of this image. And I'll work that using the clarity and texture slider in Lightroom to kind of show you how that works. And then next one, this is a great scene. I love this guy, and he's looking at you, and he's got this like crazy face and everything. I love the car, and it's a little busy in the background, but it kind of works. But to me, the image is like, I would like to see a little more separation between the side of the image and this gas pump. And I don't think we need this thing here. And then I don't know what's going on with your sky. I don't know if this is a sky replacement, but if you look, it's really just all very pixelated. And I think this would, yeah, it's just not working in the realism of this particular image. And I think, is that the last one?
That was it, yes.
Yep. Okay.
I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Right. And then I will share my screen and attempt to bring up.
Amazing review, Rich. Thank you so much.
Oh,
Nice
yeah, my
work.
pleasure. My pleasure. Although, okay, it's not letting me. Interesting.
Try now.
Let me. I guess because it looked like I was sharing somebody else's screen. Let me see, because I'm coming up with Lightroom Classic Unknown. Okay, that's interesting.
Is it your Lightroom problem?
Yeah, it's actually, I'm opening up my system preferences. Let me just see. It may be a, yeah, it's like asking. Yeah, just give me a second, guys. I apologize. I'm on a computer that is crazy slow tonight too. Here we go, system preferences. Okay, that's authenticating. It's weird because I've done this before. I've shared my screen, this screen before, but it's not letting me now. So, okay, I should be good now, hopefully. All right, let's see if I can do it. Ah, there we go. Let me just. All right, where are you? Try this one more time. There it is.
Great.
All righty, we're here. Okay, so I've got 8 images here, 2 from each group. And this is the one that is called High Noon. And, it's, to me, it just doesn't look like High Noon. So we're going to open up the develop module. And I'm not going to do like major processing here. I'm just going to do really quick. But, I mentioned before about the crop. I think if we take this image and crop it right to here, I think it really, really makes, now there's a bit more balance in the image. Actually, maybe even give you a little bit more over here. Yeah, now this image seems to really work. Now, to me, there's a black point in this image, but there's not much of a white point. So what I'm doing is like, I always do that first when I process an image. So, and I'm only going to work, just the contrast sliders, the highlights, blacks, and so on. So, but if you have a Mac and you hold down the Option key, or I think it's the Control key on a PC, and then you press the slider, you see how the screen went black? If you pull the slider up, I'm on the white slider, you see all of a sudden your white goes. And so I always get it right to here. Now all of a sudden, now we have a bright sky, and then we go to the black. And as you can see, there's a little bit too much black. So I'm pulling that slider up, and I'm not really getting away from the black, but at least I'm getting a little bit more of a high contrast scene. And so I'll open up the shadows a little bit, and maybe I'm sliding down the highlights a little bit. And, now we got, again, there's a lot more work you can do with this image, but if we go to, that's the original scene. And then this is the way I'm done with it. Now I'm dealing with a very high contrast scene, which really does live up to the name High Noon. Because, high noon is bright. And but you can just see, working more contrast. And it also brings this relationship of that tree behind the tree to life a little bit more as well. Alrighty, so let's go on to this one here. Again, I love this image a lot, but I would immediately start with cropping all this stuff out, because I don't think you need it, and just go right here. And now what we have is, we have like we have like kind of like almost an S curve or a leading line leading you up to the sky. And again, let's make that sky, let's really bring the drama out of that sky by setting a nice black point. I'm setting the white point again. So now we have like a little bit more, just even a little bit more contrast here in doing that. And, but then let's really kind of, you know, bring out a little bit more of the highlights, tone down the shadows a little bit more. And then now under these, there's presence. There's a couple of really cool sliders. Texture is great for actually just bringing the texture. You can I'm sliding the texture slider, and you can kind of see now all of a sudden these clouds are coming to life. Same thing with clarity. All clarity does is affect your mid-range contrast. And it really, now bringing that out, and then dehaze will darken your scene. So you can really kind of get this thing. And I'm not, I'm just kind of showing you where you can go with this. I think this image needs a little bit more, but we don't have the time to really kind of get into it. And it's really not, I'm just showing you what it, where you have like this. Now all of a sudden we've made this, and it really becomes this kind of more dramatic image. Now, when I work this, I love this image. Just, I guess being a landscape photographer, but I think there's just so much we can do with this. Again, I always do this every time I open up something in the Lightroom. As I find black point and I find my white point, and we're pretty much right there with this image. But I think in here, what's really going to make it is playing with shadows and highlights. By darkening the shadows a little bit, we're bringing out the dimension of these mountains, and then even bringing the highlights up a little bit. I'm really trying to get the texture in here a little bit more, and going with the clarity slider, that's working a little bit, and even using dehaze a little bit. You can see now we're bringing, now it's bringing noise out in the sky, and we could work around that. um, really what I would have done most likely is go and create a brush and just take away some of the highlight and exposure, and you can see here we're creating a lot of nice drama in the sky here. I'm not being very careful with this at all, but you're really now all of a sudden you're really highlighting this center section with this whatever this weather system that's been stuck inside these mountains. But again, just look at the original and look at the finished product, and it's not a big difference, but it really brings the drama out of the scene, or some people might say the Ansel Adams out of the scene. So this is another image I loved, but it just needed some work, and even just a little bit of let me get rid of this brush. Uh, the big thing it really could use is a crop, so that you're really kind of almost making a centered image, but it's really not centered. Maybe just give it a little bit more room on this side here, and now you have this like nice kind of leading line leading you up to, unfortunate, the butt shot of the animal here. But it really doesn't, I think the composition works really well just because all the animals are working and looking a different way. And then just play with the contrast on this a little bit. I'm gonna bring down the shadows and bring up the highlights a little bit more, and you can kind of see now all of a sudden you know this thing comes to life a little bit, kind of going in reverse order. But just really just you know brings this scene to life a little bit more as a black and white image, where you really kind of see these guys. Again, look at the look at the original, look at the finish. It's just the contrast is subtle, but the crop really makes this thing work. um now let's go here. This is dune shot. Again, I said before about getting rid of the just imagine those footprints aren't there. Um, but with a scene like this, just again, let's establish a black point, and we're almost there with that's like probably the person in this image. Uh, find a nice white point, which isn't in the sky, but you can just see even with just this little bit of contrast, the image is starting to come to life. And then if we just bring down some of the highlights a little bit in the sky, now it's bringing out those beautiful clouds more. And, just bringing down the shadows, we're now getting all sorts of dimension and detail and texture in the sand dunes themselves. And again, it's worth the play of this a little bit more. Again, if we do a little bit more with clarity, we can bring out a little bit more, texture. But here's where the dehaze thing will I like what it's doing to the sky. I'm not particularly enamored with what it's doing with the dunes. But if we dial the clarity back, now all of a sudden, again, this is not like the perfect image, and it's not the way I would finish it. But when you look at it, um, you see like here's your one image, which is nice, but here you're really bringing out some of the contrast and everything. And when I talk about side effects from over processing, particularly with HDR, the one thing that would have to be fixed in Photoshop, if you look along the ridge line where it's at the sky, there's a halo developing, and that's something that's fairly easy to fix in Photoshop. Alrighty, let's move on to the next one. Let me dial that guy back, and we're gonna go to this. This is really nice still life of this outfit. But I said before, it really needs a lot of texture. So again, let's find a nice black point here. Let's find our white point, and now all of a sudden, you just even that alone has really kind of brought a lot out of the image. And by adjusting back the highlights, you're starting to see detail in that lacy stuff again. And by bringing up the shadows, now all of a sudden, it almost this, whatever this hat piece is, it almost looks like it's silver as opposed to gray, uh, which it probably is. It looks like it has some kind of luster to it because you can see reflections in it. And, here's where, going with texture and sliding up the clarity really, really starts to bring this image to life. Right here. Now, all of a sudden, again, not 100% where I would want it to be, but, you know, if we look at the beginning image here, it's nice, but here now, all of a sudden, it's really come to life. And, and actually, actuality, I would even think about that out of focus area. If we crop this, I think that solves the problem altogether with focus. So here we got, and then this image is probably blown up way beyond its resolution. So it's probably a lot sharper than it's looking on my screen right now. But again, here's the original image, and here's somewhat of the finished image, and you can really see it coming to life. So let's look at this one. This is that misty image or that foggy image I told you about. And I think there's a lot going on with this image because you're making the fog work. And you're making, you've got this great fence that is creating a nice leading line. I mean, I would start by just cropping out that gate because it really is just not doing anything for you. And start working this image here. And here, you have a black point, but when you deal with fog, having an exact black and white point becomes less. It becomes more like what you see as opposed to what your histogram is telling you you need to do. But I'm bringing out contrast, but without, if you do this enough, what happens is you lose the fog altogether. So I'm trying to do it in a way where we keep the integrity of the fog, but we're doing that. So one way to actually make this work, which is really kind of a neat thing, is like when you add texture to an image, it brings out texture. But when you go the other way with this slider, there's a reason why these sliders start in the middle, because you can do things the other way. Now, all of a sudden, it makes the scene even a little bit more foggier, and it has more of sort of a mystical feel to it. Now that I'm looking at this, I might even venture cropping right to here and see what we got. Yeah, this is kind of even, there's a lot, yeah, there's even more. But when you look at, again, here's our original image, here's our finished image. Not a big difference in the contrast, but it's just enough to really kind of, make that fog look a little bit more mysterious. And then our last image is our Civil War reenactor here. Again, love this guy a lot. I mean, I love, every way he did it. I mean, I kind of wish his rank epaulets were a little bit more shown, but, it really doesn't matter. That's like a minor thing. But, if we have a lot of black in this image already. So, let's look at bringing the shadow detail up in his face. And now all of a sudden you really kind of see his face, and let's bring the sky down a little bit, maybe just, I actually made the sky just a tad bit brighter. And, now all of a sudden it's like, when you look at this, here he's all in shadow. You can hardly see his eyes. And here you can see his eyes more, and then whether we play with, we can, ooh, we can do the clarity, brings just a little bit, but not that much. This is an image I would bring into Photoshop and work even more. But, you can see again, it's just, he's all in shadow, but really this image is all about him. It's a headshot of this Civil War reenactor. And, but you can see how just like little things can really make the image come to life. And that's it. Does anybody have any questions or anything?
Folks can unmute if they like. Rich, that was, I think, the best critique session that we have had. I wish more were here to hear it. Members, do look at the recording. It was wonderfully done.
Thank you. Appreciate
You put in
that.
a lot of work. It's quite obvious.
Yeah, well, I enjoy doing this, and it's, it's all, I don't think we do this for the money. Yeah, we do. I've been doing this a long time, and anything I can do to help other photographers, I'm happy to do that. So,
I certainly learned a lot. And I appreciate the method you used in your critiques. It's very positive.
all right.
Any other comments?
Oh, excellent.
Oh, very good.
I- thank you for not crushing me.
I try not to crush people.
No, it's just good comments and educational. That's what the critique has to be. So yeah, I learned a lot also.
I can't wait for the October one, actually.
Yeah, that's going to be neat because that's all like anything goes. So I'm going to
exactly.
I can't wait to see what you guys come up with. So,
Well, thank you so much. Appreciate everyone being here, and we'll see you the first Monday of August.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
take care, everybody.
Take care.
Thanks, Rich.
All right, take
Bye-bye.
care.
Thank you, Rich.
Thanks,
Sure.
Matt.
Hey, Rich.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm getting them. Oh, I'm getting everybody mixed up here with their Vince. I meant Vince. I'm sorry. Thank you
Okay.
for all your work and I
Right.
think you've done for all these sessions. And I don't know what we would have done without you this year. So thank you.
Thanks, Larry. I've had a good time doing it. It's been a lot, but it's been enjoyable, and I've learned things as we've gone along. So thank you.
Yep.
All right. Have a great summer, everybody. See you first Monday of August.
Same to you.